15th. Go out on a school night. Be well worth it. MasonicCleveland.com has got the details on the show. Caller 10. These tickets are going to be yours. 2 for Danzig and company there. 216-578-1007 or 800-348-1007.
Studies show that listening to classical music can temporarily raise your IQ.
I feel pretty smart.
If you're looking for the opposite effect, just stay tuned.
The Alan Cox Show.
On 100.7 WMMS.
We got 2 hours of metal lined up for you on Saturday night. The show is called 2 Hours to Midnight. It is 10 p.m. here on The Buzzard. 120 minutes of nothing but heavy metal. I'm your host, along with Corey Roddick and Pat Butler, and the three of us each week. It's set for 10 o'clock. If the Guardians game goes long, we'll be on immediately after that. So, FYI, because I think it's a 7:15 first pitch on Saturday night. And if that game goes long, well, then we'll be on right after. But it's brand new metal. It's classic stuff. It's your requests. It's local music. Got music from Atomic Witch and Nameless, a couple of local bands this weekend. And then whatever else we throw into the mix. So it's a lot of fun. Anytime you want to submit something, a suggestion, or your band, or whatever, to htm@wmms.com is the email, and I post the playlists for you every week at WMMS.com and on the 2 Hours to Midnight Facebook page. Guardians are playing right now. I don't think it's over yet.
No,
it is the top of the ninth. Tied at 2.
Yeah, tied in the...
Top of the ninth against the Royals. Guardians going for the sweep. 14-1 was the win last night in Kansas City.
Some of those rollover runs, like you used to have rollover minutes.
Yeah. Well, what was I reading? One of the dudes on the Guardians is from Kansas City, right? He was the guy, I think, on Tuesday night that got like the walk-off homer or whatever. I forget the dude's name. Will Brennan. He's from Kansas City, like grew up as a Royals fan. That's always got to feel weird because on the one hand, you're a Major League Baseball player and you want to perform for your team. But when you're playing the team you grew up loving and you're not playing for that team, that would be pretty wild. You're like, yeah, beat your ass, team I've loved my whole life. So, top of the ninth right now, Guardians Royals tied at 2. They will head up the road and play the Cubs at Wrigley tomorrow afternoon. Why are they playing an afternoon? Well, okay.
It's like an afternoon.
Yeah, usually I feel like they're nighttime Friday nighttime games. Whatever, right?
Oh, they're playing
the Cubs tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, because I think that's a Cubs thing.
Must be.
I think the Cubs play a lot of day games. You
Yeah.
know? Wasn't there that famous rant by their old manager in the 80s?
Lee
Like
Elia?
they're a bunch of drunks out there.
That is Lee Elia,
Yeah.
the greatest rant of all time. But it's so full of expletives.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you get a minute, if you've never seen it, you're going to want, he's still alive, Lee Elia. You're going to want to Google Lee Elia rant. He played for the Cubs, played for the White Sox, managed the Cubs and the Phillies back in the day, and he just went off. I mean, he worked for a lot of teams, but he went off on because when I was a kid, and again, I grew up in a Cubs household. We were a North Side family. But out of spite, as a child, I became a White Sox fan, which is a South Side team, just because I was being a contrarian. But a lot of times that's how you arrive at your allegiances in sports. My middle brother grew up a Brewers fan because he didn't want anything to do with the Cubs. But when I was a kid, I remember seeing my grandmother watching every single Cubs game on TV, sitting there with her Cubs hat on. And so when I was a kid, there were no night games. They were all day games. And so anytime we got taken to a Cubs game, it was a big, big deal when they got lights at Wrigley Field. That was a big deal. Had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the 20th century. But Tito Francona has not been skipper for a few days now. I think he might still be in the hospital. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
He was having some medical issues there in Kansas City, and he's been kind of touch and go with some things because he had something legit a while back, right? Like he didn't have a heart attack, but he had like a thing, right?
Like an arrhythmia or something.
Arrhythmia.
Something like that. I don't know for sure.
And that's a guy you go, man, I hope he's okay. When we were having dinner back here on the corner, we're having sushi at Goma, which is on the corner of Prospect and East 4th.
I've been there.
On Saturday night. And it was an afternoon game, so the game, everybody's filing out. The game had ended by the time we were sitting down and having dinner. And right around the corner, it's Tito on his scooter going down East 4th.
That's what he does.
Yep, hops on and splits. I'll tell you what, it is, and sure, it happens all the time, but there is nothing quite like having dinner al fresco when a Guardians game gets out. Because you're sitting there, you're having some pops. You just, you're on a patio. You're having some dinner, having some fun with your friends, having some conversations, and everybody filing out. You got parents who look miserable because they've got their kids and they're trying to wrangle strollers. You've got drunks. It's the full spectrum of people. You got guys you got panhandlers, you got guys who are screaming. There was one guy that was standing out of the moonroof of his car like he was going to prom, just yelling.
There were a Saturday win, in June.
Yep.
Got to celebrate.
There were a lot of people in Brewers gear because the Guardians were playing Milwaukee. A lot of people in Brewers gear. And that's always interesting to me, too, because I always wonder, do those people travel or are they Brewers fans who live here? Right.
I think there's probably a little of both. I mean, Cleveland's such a destination for vacation these days.
It really is. That's what they say.
Yeah.
But I notice that a lot more during football season than baseball season. Football season, you'll have all kinds of people wearing, the visiting team's jerseys. And some of it's regional. Mm-hmm. You're going to have people who live here who might be from Pennsylvania or from, Indiana or whatever. So you'll have people wearing Colts jerseys or Steeler jerseys. But just to sit there and watch. And again, I already told the story earlier in the week, but I got to watch a guy flip off a homeless guy, which again is rude. But to pull the middle finger out of his pocket, to go through that kabuki theater with the guy.
It's a real throwback.
It was wild.
Such a dick move.
Well, but as it was happening, and this was my fault, I was stereotyping the guy. Because the homeless guy was a black, older gentleman, and the guy flipping him off was a giant, younger black dude. Like a big, hulking man. And so I was like, oh, he's going to, because he stepped up to him like they were going to talk. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, my brother, what, that kind of stuff that you'll see, little street conversations that you'll see people have. And I thought that's what it was going to be. And he reached into his pocket and pulled out a middle finger and flipped the guy off. And I was like, wow.
Maybe it was his dad.
It's so rude. Yeah, right?
You said that's so rude? Yeah,
it's rude.
So rude.
I don't think he was thinking about, if I do this would be really rude.
But it wasn't like the guy was stumbling drunk. Now, again, this all transpired as we were walking past. So I don't know anything other than what I saw. But it wasn't like the guy was stumbling or drunk or anything like that. He very purposefully walked up to the guy, reached into his pocket, pulled out a middle finger. I'm like, give the guy a buck or something. I mean, it's almost non-existent anymore that I'll be walking around with cash in my pocket. That's what's really screwing homeless people and panhandlers in general, is a lot of people aren't walking around with cash. A couple of times I've seen a dude at the off-ramp with a piece of cardboard, got a Venmo handle on it. And I think there's a thing in people's heads where they go, oh, he's not really Venmo. Everybody has a phone now. Everyone
Even
has a
homeless
phone.
people, yeah.
And it doesn't cost you anything to set up Venmo. So, listen, if people don't want to give money to homeless people and panhandlers, they'll come up with a reason to not do it. But this guy's got Venmo is the lamest idea I've ever heard to not give somebody money. I mean, there's no minimum on Venmo, right? You could Venmo a dude $1.
Yeah, I think you can.
Yeah,
I don't know about change, but I think $1.
Except I guess you
Okay.
have to have a bank account, don't you?
No, you can keep it
No,
on
there's-
Venmo.
yeah,
You
there's
can?
like
Venmo.
Cash.
Yeah, Venmo has its
They have
own
little cards and
cards
stuff.
and stuff now. Yeah, you can. Venmo is kind of a bank now.
Okay.
The people have like Chime too. Like Chime is like a bank.
By the way, if it is your birthday today, happy birthday. I have some dear friends who are turning a year older today. And it is also Happy Seinfeld Vomit Day for those of you who celebrate that. June 29th is Seinfeld Vomit Day.
I haven't vomited in 13 years.
Get out!
Not since June 29th, 1980.
You remember the date.
Yes, because my previous vomit was also June 29th, 1972. That's why during the 80 vomit, I was yelling to George, can you believe it? I'm vomiting on June 29th again.
That's the black and white cookie episode. Not getting along. I got money to give to you. It is $1,000, courtesy of the Buzzard Bookie. Listen closely and good luck.
This is your chance to bet with the Buzzard Bookie and win $1,000 now. Enter this nationwide keyword at WMMS.com. Grand. That's grand. Enter it now at WMMS.com.
Grand. I get it. Grand. Alan, leaving the Guardians game, there was a homeless guy you could tell was a little bit slow, shaking a Solo cup with coins, saying things like, bye-bye, come back soon, go Guardians. And a little girl runs up to him. This guy is in a power chair, by the way. Little girl runs up to him and says, I want some money. Can I have some? You got to
They
get
give
your
her some?
kids. Well, they didn't tell me that. They just texted me the little anecdote there. Tito is resting at the team hotel, back with the team, but not managing today. Well, that's good.
Do we got a
Yeah.
final on that yet? I haven't seen it.
I have not seen that. No, I'm looking at
Still
tied it to at the end of the ninth.
top of the 10th.
Going to extra innings in Kansas City.
Extra.
Right. Well, let me play this for you very quickly before I go to break. We do have a handful of bureau chiefs in the great state of South Dakota. And as we approach July 4th next week, Mount Rushmore is something that a lot of people think of with respect to the origins of this country and patriotism and blah, blah, blah. A lot of people have, maybe you visited Mount Rushmore with a family or something like that. I've never been. But I know, I think Gwen has gone when she was younger with her family. And so a lot of people obviously think of Mount Rushmore. It is a monument to this nation. Unless you think that it's full of demons, which is what one state rep right there, a guy named Joe Donnell, who represents one of the districts in South Dakota, I think the far northeast district of South Dakota, whatever that is. He is one of these crazy conspiracy theorists, and he's really come up with something wild. That Mount Rushmore is, in fact, a portal for demons. This is a grown man who was elected to public office who was saying this out loud. A portal for demons to spread communism across the nation. It's like it's 1950 for these people.
That's what we're dealing with, and what the Lord revealed to me is that Mount Rushmore has a direct ley line to Washington, D.C., that God was going to break that connection. In order to understand the spiritual realm and what we're facing, that acts as a portal for demonic things.
Yeah, that's a guy representing constituents in the state of South Dakota. That's what the Lord revealed to him is a ley line. You know what a ley line is?
No.
People who believe that there's ancient structures with energy fields that go from one place to the next. And this guy, Mount Rushmore of all places, is a portal for demons. So I don't know if any of our bureau chiefs in South Dakota are represented by Representative Joe Donnell. He's a Republican, by the way. No shock.
What?
Right. What? But there it is. Mount Rushmore is a demonic portal. So if you're going to take the kids
Doesn't
this
even
summer,
have like a portal type energy at all.
you don't
Like,
need
there's
the Lord
no-
revealed this to him.
There's all right. If you're gonna think of different monuments or like structures or even like natural occurring
lines,
portals,
yeah.
ley lines. The Yellow Springs, not Yellow Springs, but the
Old Faithful.
Old Faithful, yeah, like the a spring.
Mm-hmm.
It makes more sense. It's hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a geyser. You know, it's got some menacing energy to it. Caves have energy like that, but a sculpture of a bunch of dudes' heads. That's not even that impressive when you see it in person.
Well, it is a demonic portal. and that guy-
I'm saying there's other demonic portals, and this guy's projecting.
Well,
on this
somebody keep an eye on this guy. If you see him up there with like dynamite or something, you're gonna know what he's up to.
Devil, devil, go away. Devil, devil, go away. I don't want you round no more. Don't come knocking at my door. Devil, don't you come this way. Devil, devil, go away.
The Alan Cox Show on 100.7 WMMS.